Welcome to JobGhost, the podcast where we talk about all things ghosting. Feels like it's been a really long time since I've done this because we took a couple weeks off for the holidays, so it's really nice to be back and be recording again. Today we have a special guest that I'm super excited to talk to. She has over 15 years of experience building and advising HR teams through growth, change, and transition. She's the founder of Patchwork Portfolio and the co-host of the HR Confessions podcast. Kim Rohrer, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this. I feel very passionately about ghosting and recruiting.
Thank you for coming. Did I pronounce your last name right? I should have asked you before we started.
No, you're good.
Good.
You're good.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being here. Super excited.
Me too.
So
Yay.
Tell us a bit more about Patchwork Portfolio, your podcast, and anything else that you've been up to lately.
Sure. So Patchwork Portfolio is my consulting firm that I run solopreneur life. Shout out to all of my fractional people and solopreneurs out there.
Not easy.
Yeah, founded officially as a kind of a result of being part of a layoff that I was running when I left Oyster in 2023. I realized I didn't want to only focus on kind of the traditional fractional HR work. I had started out in doing, kind of standard interim head of people, fractional VP of people after having 15 years of a career being a in-house VP of people. I thought, I say I thought as if I came up with this myself. No, it was several friends who were like, why are you doing all the things you didn't like about your job before if you have total control over what you're doing? And so I thought, what I like to do is a lot of different things. And I've always liked to do a lot of different things. So what if I could shape my consulting business around that? And so that's where the idea of the patchwork came to be. And people were starting to talk about portfolio careers a little bit more. And so I thought that would make sense. And I love alliteration. I'm a writer. And so with Patchwork Portfolio, I focus primarily on storytelling and strategy. There's one part that's executive ghostwriting and helping leaders find the words that they need without just, dumping into ChatGPT and putting out AI slop. And two parts, HR strategy and storytelling. So internal communications around moments that matter, change management, big important communications. I've done things like complete overhauls of leadership communications all the way down to help us draft these messages around a layoff that we're doing. To, how do we connect our mission and our values to the work that we're doing every day and tell employees a compelling story that will actually keep them engaged. So I do lots of different things there. But true to its name, I also do some blog writing for companies, mostly in the HR tech space. And I have my own newsletter that I write. I Care Too Much on Substack. Podcast, HR Confessions, where my co-host Rebecca and I dish about the stories that people submit to us about their wild and crazy stories of workplace misadventures. I'm starting a new podcast, sneak peek. It's coming out hopefully later this quarter. I'm writing a book. I'm doing all kinds of crazy things. I cannot focus on just one.
Wow, you're busy. That's the fun part about being a solopreneur though, right? You can kind of focus on...
It is fun and terrifying and not always financially viable.
I hear you on that. Yeah, for sure. And are you able to share any details on the new podcast or not yet? Is that secret?
It's not totally secret. I've been teasing it a little bit on my LinkedIn. It is a podcast exploring the intersection of theater and HR. That's what I will say. I have a theater background. It's very, very niche. I was telling a friend yesterday, if 10 people listen to it and enjoy it, I will be happy. There's a lot of us in HR who come from theater backgrounds.
Yeah, that's super interesting you say that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the evil HR lady.
Yeah.
She was on our podcast a month and a half ago, maybe. And so she does some improv stuff with people in HR as well.
Amazing.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, it's something that I've been noodling on for, almost 20 years now. And now that we're in 2026, it's been 17 years I've been thinking about this idea and didn't know what to do with it. And in the last couple of years, I've had more and more conversations with people that have pushed me to want to tell some stories. So that'll be the focus of the podcast, and hopefully it'll be out by the end of the quarter. Self-produced. If anyone wants to sponsor and produce, I'm all ears. So far it's me and my Riverside.
I was going to ask if you're going to use Riverside. Yeah, they make it pretty easy though, but yeah, it's good. It'd be good to have a sponsor in the future. Always
nice to get paid for your work.
Yeah. So when you hear these stories, are any of them about ghosting?
Oh yes. I would say I've heard worse stories than I have personally experienced. I've been largely pretty lucky on the ghosting front, or I just don't care when I get ghosted if it's early enough in the process. I've heard some really terrible horror stories of people who have gotten to final stages and they've never heard anything again, or they've had an interview scheduled and the person never showed up, and then the company never responded to another email of theirs again. And that's sort of the worst ones that I've seen. I have had lots and lots of experience, especially in the early ATS automation days, like when Greenhouse and Lever were just getting started. I had been hearing a lot of stories and experiencing myself just the letdown when you never hear from a company again after even if it's at the application stage and it's going to be an instant reject. Like, the software existed to make it easy to send a rejection letter. And I think that's, I remember applying for jobs back in the day. I'm so old. I remember, you walk in and you fill out a paper application and you hope somebody gets back to you. And we don't live in those times anymore. I have hired for jobs where it's been, send your resume to jobs@company.com. And that is more manual for recruiters. That is harder for people to follow up with every single application they receive. But hardly anyone is doing that anymore, especially, I'm guessing, for the audience for this podcast, for the people who are looking at this on the internet. Most companies are doing some form of applicant tracking system based recruiting. And if you have a system where you're bare minimum, you've got a spreadsheet or you've got to send your resumes to this email address, you can still turn on an autoresponder and say, hey, thank you for applying. We can't respond to everybody. We will get in touch with you if we're going to move forward. If you don't hear from us, it's because we're not moving forward. And don't cop out with a no reply bounce back, right? If you're going to be individualized like that, then you got to put your name behind your email. I'm getting off track into solutions, but I've so many times I've submitted resumes and they've just gone into black holes. And that's one of the first things I look for when I apply at a company is how do they automate their candidate experience in a way that makes people still feel like they're getting, they haven't been lost to the sands of recruiting time, that their application still exists and is live somewhere in the company's portal, and then that it closes out and they can have closure on their application process. That's one of the first things I look for when I apply. And when I work with a company or I join, whether I'm internal or consulting, that's one of the first things I look at is, how do you respond to candidates throughout the process? How do you reject people? And my very, very worst timeline one was I applied for a job at a large university many years ago, and 2 years later, I got a rejection.
That's going to be I can just see it now, it's going to be a little snippet from this conversation that
2 years. I was I have had multiple jobs since then, my friends.
Oh my goodness. And do you think, this is my theory, that someone new or something just went in and realized there was a bunch of candidates?
Yes, I'm sure.
But we never hired Kim, and then it just sent it out.
I think so. I think probably this is my uneducated guess, or educated guess, I'll say. I've been doing this a long time. Probably they had the role open in their system. They hired someone and forgot to close the role, or they closed the role and forgot to hit send rejections, or they didn't think to do it. And then somebody came in and they're like, let's clean out. Why do we have all of these active candidates for roles that we're not hiring for anymore? So I doubt it took them 2 years to hire this mid-level HR position. So they probably had somebody come in and was like, I got to clean this shit up. We have too many applicants just sitting. Select all, hit reject. That is my guess, which good for them because yay, system cleanup. But it gave me a good laugh.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Yeah. I want to go back to what you said about, some companies still do this, but not all, where they sort of go back to the basics and just provide an email address for candidates to apply to, and maybe they don't necessarily use an ATS. It's interesting you say that, because that's actually the route we're going with JobGhost, where right now, at least to start, I'm sure we'll integrate and stuff with things in the future, but right now it's just going to be an email address that somebody uses.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then the AI agent will come in and it'll manage the process. And we realize that's not for everybody, because not everybody's going to want to do that, which is fine.
But your operations and your cultures and your systems shouldn't be for everybody. They should be for the people who you're trying to hire.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was going to ask you, so do you think, is that part of your solution sometimes for these companies, is there's so much noise with all the tools they're using, it might just be time for you to go back to the basics and then see what you need?
Yeah. It depends on volume and it depends on your team size. So if you are in hyper growth and you have a 30-person recruiting team and you're trying to hire super fast, it's not going to be possible to manage one inbox. If you're hiring slow and steady and you have a recruiter or a recruiter and a coordinator, and they're handling, a handful of roles at a time, they can probably manage it through one dedicated inbox that they're sharing and coordinating through. I just think it's really important to manage your your inbox like visibility and reply tos and labels and filters and get really smart about how you use your inbox, whether you're doing it just like in Gmail or Outlook or whatever, or you're using an inbox AI agent or whatever you're doing. If you have more than one person using that inbox, there has to be a good, there's a word for this, but like recognition of changes and documentation of progress and like the things that you would get by looking at a history in an ATS. You have to be able to have that stuff documented. So like I've seen it a lot where there will be a jobs at email address, you submit your stuff, and then a recruiter replies to you individually from their personal account, and then you're having this whole thread with them between your account and their personal work account, and then someone else from the recruiting team will reach out because they don't know that that conversation's happening. So like, how are you documenting changes and progress when you're managing it through a shared inbox? I think that's just something you want to keep in mind so that you don't accidentally ghost someone, and so the candidate doesn't have to do the awkward thing of like, oh, hey, I'm already talking to someone else from your team. Do you guys even know who I am? Like, why are your records so crossed? So you just want to make sure that whatever system you're using, that you are being thoughtful about how you are documenting conversations. That's what I feel like that's what candidate experience is all about, is like the person feeling like someone knows what conversation they're having and they know who to talk to.
Yeah, because I'm sure that does, I mean, I've seen it impact candidates, you know, views on the company and whether or not they even accept the role if offered.
I feel like Glassdoor could probably do a really interesting like sentiment analysis report if they like pulled all of the comments about recruiting confusion. Like the number of comments I've seen on Glassdoor about recruiters not knowing you and companies like forgetting who you are, or, you know, things like that. I see it all the time. They're like, I had this interview and then the recruiter scheduled me for a phone screen, but I was already partway through the process. It's like, that makes you feel like crap. That doesn't make you feel like the company cares about you or wants you there or knows anything about you. And you want to feel special when you're applying for a job. You want to feel like the company's actually interested in you. And even if you are interested in someone, small mistakes like that can really mess up someone's impression of your company and your employer brand.
Absolutely. Yeah. From what you've seen, why do you think this is happening? Is it like a training issue? Are they overloaded with recs?
I think it's probably a combination of like tooling and process. Honestly, I think when you are in a high pressure recruiting environment, as you know, often people are just like trying to move as quickly as possible. And like when you're trying to move really fast, you don't always take the time to make sure that what you're doing is actually helping in the right way. So you might be like, oh, this candidate's been sitting here for a couple of days. Like someone's got to get back to them. My colleague is out of town. Like, let me just respond to them real quick. But you don't know that the colleague sent a private message to the candidate saying, hey, I'm going to be out of town for a few days. Here's your next step. I'll get back to you when I return. And so then when you jump in and say, hey, sorry, nobody's gotten back to you yet, then it's like, oh, you're throwing your colleague under the bus. They already cleared it with me. Like, it's cool. We're fine. Like, and then it just puts weirdness out there. And it's not necessarily because someone did something wrong as a recruiter in the overall world of recruiting, but it smells stinky. It smells like a poorly organized recruiting function when you have people who aren't keeping up with each other's candidates, I guess. That's why I always have recruiters, when you're going out on a leave or whatever, provide a candidate update. Like, here's all the candidates I'm in process with. Can someone follow up with these people? Or here's a quick status report on all my outstanding stuff, so that no one feels like they have to go in and save the day because of a high pressure environment.
That's a great tip. Actually, yeah, my boss in my last role had me do that. Had everybody do that anytime that they'd go out on vacation, and it worked really well, and it made us work better as a team too.
Yeah. Recruiting can sometimes be competitive, even though you're all working for the same goal. If you have certain recs assigned to you and you're like, I want to close my recs the fastest of anyone on this team, or like, I want to win it's like sales in that way. But that can sometimes lead to accidental messiness if you don't have really clear swim lanes and clear processes for how to help each other out and how to move your own stuff quickly.
When a company goes, 2 years, like you had shared, is super extreme. But
yeah.
Like a month or two.
Even that feels really long right now.
Yeah. Why do you think that happens? What's going on there?
Well, I think the real reasons that happens are unclear priorities internally, where a role might seem like it's really urgent, but then as they start interviewing people, they realize, oh, we don't actually know if this is what we want or need, or maybe we're going to change the rec, maybe we're going to change the leveling, maybe we're going to change who the manager is, not having really clear confidence in what the role is before you start hiring it. There can be random delays, like, our fundraising is actually coming to a head faster than we thought, and we need to focus all our energies on that. Or the exec team is doing an offsite, or surprise, we're doing a layoff, or, any number of things can slow things down. And I honestly think that candidates don't care as much about the length of time if you keep them informed. And again, that's the candidate experience. That's like, I had a job once that I was applying for that partway through the process, the recruiter reached out and was like, hey, we really like you. We've just realized that we need a totally different level for this role, and we're not actually going to be hiring someone at your level. We need someone who's more junior, and if you're still interested, like, let us know, but we assume this is going to be too junior for you, so like, no stress if you're going to opt out. And I was like, hey, thank you for being so candid with me and telling me that now, instead of taking 2 or 3 months to hire someone more junior and then reject me when you close the role. Right. It was, and I had a really great rejection. I'm going to write a LinkedIn post about this. I told the recruiter that I would, and then I just haven't done it yet. But she gave me the most thoughtful rejection I've ever gotten in my career, where she explained that there was like a brand voice mismatch, and it was for an externally facing, candidate facing role. She was like, I personally love your brand out there and how you talk and stuff, but it's not in enough alignment with how we talk as a company. Like, I know you don't want to feel muzzled by like not being allowed to speak politically on LinkedIn, for example. And so she's like, I just wanted to let you know that like, this wasn't anything about your skill or your talent or like anything personal. It's just like, there's a brand voice mismatch based on like what our guidelines are for how employees participate in social media. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, I agree. This would not be a good fit for me. Like this, I would not enjoy a job where my company said, you're not allowed to post about these topics anymore. Right. And that, instead of just like being ghosted while they figure out what they want and then be rejected with a blanket rejection, like that really was meaningful. And I know you can't do that with every candidate. I know you can't give that kind of detailed feedback to everyone, but whenever you can, when there's an opportunity to do some good like that, I think it's really, really valuable.
Yeah, she sounds like a great recruiter. I'm sure that wasn't...
Yeah, high five.
She's used to it, but yeah, maybe she, probably wasn't the easiest conversation for her to have either. So kudos to her for doing that. And I wonder why ghosting happens too.
They're scared.
People are, afraid to have tough conversations.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I end up doing a lot of executive ghostwriting, is the executives are like, we need to communicate this. We're going to just like say it. I'm like, oh no, that's not how you talk to people. I know you're scared to like say the hard thing. This happens actually where I see it the most, that I've like loved doing it in my career, is around, this is going to sound weird, but like around really bad engagement survey scores. Because often executives will try to just not share them, or they'll say, we did our engagement survey. Here's what's been great, onward and upward. And they're afraid to share the bad news because they don't want to tell people, our engagement's in the tank, or you say leadership doesn't communicate well. And I always tell them, like, the people know what's going on. They're the ones that submitted the feedback. Like, this is not a surprise to them. But if you're afraid to have the hard conversation, if you're afraid to tell people, I see the problems that I am causing, then people just think you're a liar, right? Then people are going to be even more engaged, and they're going to say you're even worse of a communicator as a leader. That principle it's human nature, I think, to not want to share bad news with people. It's hard to send rejections, but I'll tell you, in the last year or so, I've applied for full-time positions as they come across my plate and they're like really interesting or compelling. Although I'm still mostly focused on my consulting work, I'm not against taking a full-time role if it's the right role. And I've seen so many rejection letters that look exactly the same, that tell me nothing about the company or their values or their process, or it doesn't have to be personal to me about why I was rejected, but the number of emails that just say like, thank you for applying. We've moved forward in another direction. Please keep your eye on our job board. Bye. It's like, well, I'm glad you told me I was rejected, but like, this is table stakes. And I have no interest in keeping up with your job board now, because you've rejected me in the blandest, most minimal way possible. And that doesn't leave me with any sort of lasting impression on your company that I want to follow up with. And that connects back to like the idea of like, it's one thing to not ghost people. It's another thing to reject people and leave them wanting more, and like leave them still interested in your company. And how are you building brand ambassadors and evangelists, or whatever you want to call it, through your rejection process? Even it's like how you treat people. It's the same parallel with employee experience. How you treat people on the way out says a lot more about you as a brand than how you treat them on the way in. And it's the same for employee experience. It's the same for recruiting. I've had companies reject me, and I've been like, oh, that's a bummer that role didn't work out. But I have applied for many more roles at that company because of the way they engaged me even throughout the rejection process.
Also, these companies have services or products or something they're selling too.
Yeah. wow, this role wasn't right for me, but this company still seems awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a recruiter tell me, actually, I'm making a post about this tomorrow. I had a recruiter tell me recently that she was recruiting for like a hair company, like they sold hair products. And she had a candidate say to her that, I don't think she got the job, but she was like, this experience was so wonderful with you that I'm actually like a customer of
that's amazing.
Your company now.
I love that. Like there's always opportunities, and like you can think of this cynically and say like there's always opportunities to sell, there's always opportunities to get a new customer or like build your brand or whatever. But I really think it at its core, it's about there's always opportunities to treat people with humanity and to contribute to a more connected global community of people. If you treat people like people and not like seats to fill, clients to sell to, it's like, yeah, not every candidate you reject is going to become a customer of yours, but some of them might, and that's cool. And that's good for your business. And in the meantime, like you've improved someone's life. You've made their day a little bit better, and that might make someone else's day a little bit better. There's small things that you can do that really make the experience more human.
Pros outweigh the cons to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know we're getting close on time, but I want to walk you through, or I want you to walk us through one scenario.
Yeah.
Let's say you'll work with a startup, right?
I will work with a startup. I have worked with many startups.
Awesome. Okay. Let's say that.
It's like, yeah, I'll work with a startup. I love startups.
They're fun. Yeah. Let's say that you're working with a startup of like 60, 70 people or so. Let's say that, they have a few people in the C-suite, maybe a couple people at VP level and like sales and in marketing, maybe in tech. And they don't have necessarily somebody internally helping them with recruiting or HR.
What? This is so surprising. I can't imagine this scenario. What?
Know, right? It's like unicorn.
So weird. So weird.
And like their hiring is just like a disaster because the people in those roles who are hiring are also very much in the weeds themselves, and they just like can't deal with it all. What do you do first?
Well, I look at number of roles and priority of those roles and say like, okay, what do we actually need to hire and when do we need to hire it by? And then I do a little capacity planning and see what could I take on if I'm the new head of HR or head of recruiting or one person team doing all of the above, which is the more likely scenario. What can I actually handle in terms of like quick fixes to make things better? And then I look at that and I see, okay, what do I need to augment this? Because my first goal is to take as much of the day-to-day of the recruiting off their plates as possible. I want them to be strategic hiring managers who are, creating their, whatever you call your playbook, your hiring map, your whatever. I want to, I go deep. I'm like, I want to standardize our job applications. I want to make sure the copy is the same on all of our job postings where we talk about the company. I want to make the careers page really great, but all that stuff comes later. First, it's like, I want to reduce the workload for teams to being the hiring manager and overseeing the overall strategy of who are we looking for and what do we need to know to make that decision, and have a clear rubric for evaluating candidates consistently so that we're reducing bias, so that we're having, consistent evaluation across candidates. And if I can get those two things in place, however many roles I can do that myself for, then I start figuring out like, okay, do I need a coordinator? Do we have so many interviews happening and so many candidates coming through that like I need a coordinator to handle all the scheduling and communication while I handle all of the like, what the hell are you even looking for? And are you even asking the right interview questions to measure that? And then I look at how sustainable is this? There's a lot you can do with one kind of recruiting strategist and one really efficient coordinator. But I might look at outsourcing. I've worked with some really great placement firms who come in and they're like an embedded recruiting team that can scale up and down with you. And they're like, to take some of that off. It depends on how much else is on your plate as a people leader and what you like to do. Like you might love the recruiting leadership side and be like, I don't want to outsource the talent strategy. I want to do that part. And I'll bring someone in to help us with our compensation and leveling or values exercises or performance management or whatever. Bring in a consultant for the stuff that I can't handle myself. That's why fractional work is so great. But yeah, I like the very first thing I do, and it feels sort of patronizing, I guess, but I come in like the very first thing I would look at is like, how badly have you all screwed this up and how big is the mess? And like most of the time they're not trying to do it on purpose, right? It's not that they don't care. It's that, like you said, they're in the weeds with their jobs. Someone who is managing a team of engineers or who is running a vicious sales cycle is not in the right headspace to think about consistency of candidate experience. They're not in the right headspace to see if from applicant to applicant, they're asking the same questions so they can properly evaluate people against each other. And so what ends up happening is people end up hiring based on vibe or based on someone recommended you to me and it seems like a good idea. And then the person gets in and the job they end up doing is wildly different from what they were hired for. They may or may not be like trained with the right skill set to do that. And you end up with like slow hiring and bad hiring. And so I try to I always look at, this is the last thing I'll say on this, is my general approach to all of these things where you come in and you're like, shit, what have I just walked into? Is like, okay, where are we today? Where do I want to be? Like in my ideal dream state, if I had all the resources and time and money in the world, like what do I want this to look like? And how far away are we from it? And then I walk it backwards and be like, okay, well, we can't create a templatized recruiting playbook on day one. Like that's not going to happen. But on day one, can I do a 30-minute review of our job descriptions and make sure that we're using the same language about when our last fundraise was, for example? Because I've come into jobs and been like, wow, the about this company sections on your job page are different, or like the benefits listed on your job descriptions are different from job to job to job. It's like, these are just like consistency errors that are like easy to fix and will make things simpler. And it gives you that like little dopamine hit of like, I fixed something on day one. Yay. But really like starting with your dream state and then working your way backwards to what is the minimum viable improvement I can make today, tomorrow, this quarter. Where do I want to be 6 months from now? And I think in startups, 6 months is probably a good place to start.
Yeah. Do you find that like, let's keep on with that same scenario. Do you find like that type of situation or company is usually in need of your ghostwriting services as well to communicate?
Yes. Always. They always. And this is honestly how I honed these skills as an internal people leader, by just taking over and being like, okay, thank you for this. We're not posting this online. Let me fix it. My theater background is in like helping playwrights shape their scripts and in writing material for programs to help people understand the world of the play that we're in. And it's like writing and copy editing is just something I will pick up always to do. But a lot of times with companies, it's everything from like writing job descriptions to clarifying the story we're telling on our careers page to writing templates for candidate rejection emails. Like I've gone in and done like audit all of our recruiting communications, like everything that's in our greenhouse, everything that's on our careers page, everything that's in our job applications, and just like audit it and make it better and consistent. I will say, like, small plug for my former employer and longtime client, Oyster. They and their talent team, currently led by the amazing Stacey Slater, they somewhat recently like did an overhaul on all of their job, like careers page stuff and job application copy. And like, I guess it wasn't that recently, it was like 2 years ago, but they did this overhaul. And I just remember pinging the team and being like, this is incredible work. Like, this is thorough and it's engaging and it's candid and it's welcoming and it like doesn't pull any punches, but it also like gets you excited. And that same tone that they use when you experience the careers page, when you experience a job application, when you click on the links to read more about the company, it's all consistent with the company's voice and what they're trying to say and what they're trying to do. And that was something that we worked really collaboratively on while I was there with our internal comms team and our employee experience team, and like all of us working together on what do we want the voice of our team to be? How do we want people to experience us as a company? How do we want people to experience us as a candidate versus an employee versus a customer? And like really working together between brand, marketing, design, HR, TA, like all of us working together means that you have this really consistent expectation setting. And there's only so much we can do to control how someone actually experiences working for the manager who hires them once they get in seat. But we can at least like put all the framework in place so that we have things to point to. And then if that experience doesn't live up to what the manager promised in the interview process, then at least we like have things to point to, be like, hey manager, like these are our expectations for how it's going to be. So yeah, I've definitely done that with clients. Similar work, going in and being like, hey, the way you talk about your company on your careers page is very different from the way you email candidates. Or like, the worst, I have no qualms about crapping all over Workday. The worst is when you're like on a website and you're like, ooh, this careers page looks awesome. This company looks awesome. Like the careers page seems also like modern and inviting and inclusive. And then you click the link and it's like the worst Workday form you've ever had to fill out. And you like upload your resume and then you still have to fill out every box, and it's asking you questions like in weird orders, and you try to type and it like the form jumps around all over the place, and it's like, well, this just totally soured me on the company. I don't even know if I want to finish filling this thing out.
That's the worst. I've heard other people say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, sorry Workday. I know I know they're not a sponsor of this podcast.
They sponsor a lot of podcasts though. I feel like
I know.
It was a trend for a while where they were sponsoring so many podcasts I was listening to. I was like, do these people even
listen? You can throw money around at podcast sponsorships, but just spend some time fixing your damn product.
That's so funny. Well, thank you so much for being here. I mean, you shared so many good tips and helpful points for startups or really any company that's looking to make the candidate experience better, and even, I guess, their employee experience better as well.
It's all related. It's all related. And that's the thing, like, you know, as a storyteller, as a person who likes connecting meaning to work, I really see that through line from tip to tail of the first time someone interacts with your brand as a customer or a candidate, all the way through their employee experience until they're an alumni, and hopefully there's like still a customer or still a fan. And it's all in the consistency and how you communicate along the way.
Yeah, definitely. To wrap things up here really quickly, I always like to ask, what's one simple thing you think we could all be doing to help eliminate ghosting?
Just automate something. You don't have to do it all yourself.
That's right.
God, this is like when people do they do like a lightning round and then they stop and talk about every answer. But I got a really great one recently from a company that I could tell it was automated messaging, but it was so good that I like responded to them. I was like, I just want to let you know, like, high five, like excellent, customized and friendly automation. Like, I know you didn't type this email out manually and send it to me as an individual. Like, I've been on the other side. I understand how this works, but like A+ automation, great job.
I love how you give so much feedback too. I think that's huge because companies need to hear when they're doing well.
Yeah,
right?
We got to. Everyone's just trying. This is a messed up, hard world right now. Like, it's just work. Like, let's shout each other out when we're doing good stuff.
Yeah. Well, tell us where everyone can go find you.
You can find me at patchworkportfolio.com. You can find my Substack at icaretoomuch at Substack, icaretoomuch.substack.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Tell me you found me through this podcast so I remember. Because, you know, LinkedIn inboxes are so full of spam. Like, please tell me that you're a real human being.
Yes, I hear you. Are you on TikTok or Instagram?
I am on a private Instagram only for people who actually know me in real life.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is my primary social. I was on Twitter back in the day. Like, I was very, very active on Twitter, and I can't even look at it anymore. And I keep saying, like, I'm too old for TikTok. I don't get it.
It's kind of fun, but I hear you. I'm a LinkedIn girl. That's my favorite.
I get my TikToks when people send them to me on Instagram. That's the generation I'm in.
Like a reel, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much again, Kim. I really appreciate you being here, and thanks for taking the time. And
yeah.
Thanks for tuning into JobGhost the podcast. If you liked this episode, please give us a like and review, and subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify. Don't forget to get on our wait list at jobghost.ai, and follow us on social at jobghost.ai on Instagram and JobGhost on LinkedIn. And remember, everyone, say no to ghosting.